Algebra 1B students, this is the video on power rules for exponents. We are going to be filling in these three boxes right here. Okay, so let's just start with power to a power. So if you look over here at the examples, this is the case where we have x to the fourth and we want to raise that to the fifth. Okay, so we kind of have two exponents here. So here's our rule. If we have x to the a and we want to raise that to the b, all we have to do is take those exponents and we multiply them. Okay? So when we were doing the product rule, when we were multiplying two things, x to the a and x to the b, we added them. Now when we are taking things to a power, we're multiplying them. Okay? Almost like repeated addition is multiplication, repeated multiplication is exponents. Okay? So looking at this example, x to the 4 to the 5, well, that would be x to the 4 times 5, which is x to the 20. Looking at this one, 2 to the 2 to the negative 4 would be 2 to the negative 8, and then because that is negative, we need to drop it down to the denominator and make it positive, so it would be 1 over 2 to the 8. Excellent. Let's look at power to a product. Actually, no, let's go back to power to a power. Let's talk about why this works real quick. If I have x squared to the 3, if I expand to the third, that gives me x squared times x squared times x squared. And using our product rule, that would be x to the 2 plus 2 plus 2, which is x to the 6. And don't forget, 2 times 3 is 6. So that's why power to a power, you multiply them instead of add them. All right. So let's talk about power to a product. So power to a product is when you have more than one thing and you want to raise that whole thing to a power. Now notice that 2x parenthesis to the 3 is very different than 2x to the third. Here, the 3 is only acting on the x. Here, the 3 is acting on the 2 and the x. Okay? So let's see. If we have xy to the m power, the power to a product rule tells us that that's the same as x to the m power times y to the m power. Or you can think of it as xm, ym, right? We don't absolutely need that little dot. So it's almost like you're taking that m and you're sort of like distributing it to the different pieces of your product there. So looking at this example, I'm going to take 3 and I'm going to take both of those numbers to the third power. So that's going to be 2 to the third times x to the third. And we can actually simplify that because 2 to the third is 2 times 2, which is 4, times 2, which is 8, so that would be 8x cubed. Okay? Same thing here. We have to do it to all three. Okay? So that would be 14 squared x. Now this is x cubed. So if I want to take x cubed squared from our power to a power rule, that would give me x to the 6th because I multiply them. And then y squared would be y squared. Okay. And we can also do that out. 14 squared is 196. Don't believe me, we can do calculator. And then that would give us x to the 6 y squared. Okay? So, again, why does this one work? What if I had xy squared? Well, xy squared would be xy times xy. And because I'm doing multiplication, I can kind of rearrange this, right? Multiplication is commutative. That means I have x times y, which is x squared times y squared. Okay, so it's just the same as distributing that squared. Okay? So, power to a power, you multiply them. Power to a product, you kind of distribute that power. So let's talk about power to a quotient. So let's say I have x over y to the m. What do you think is going to happen this time? Yep, we're just going to distribute that exponent again, so it's going to be x to the m divided by y to the m. Just like we did this with multiplication, we can do it with division. It doesn't matter. So looking at our examples now, I'm going to distribute that fourth to the 1, so 1 to the 4 over x to the 4. And actually I can do 1 to the 4 because it's 1 times 1, which is 1, times 1, which is 1, times another 1, which is 1. Always going to be 1. And so then it can turn into 1 over x to the 4. Now let's look at this one. This one we have some power to a product and power to a quotient because the top half is a product And then, of course, we have the bottom for the power to a quotient. So that would look like 2 squared times a squared over b squared. And we can do 2 squared, which gives us 4a squared over b squared. Let's talk about why this one happens. If I have, let's say, x over y cubed, that's going to look like x over y times x over y times x over y. And we are multiplying, so again, we can rearrange. So that's going to look like x times x times x over y times y, which would give us x cubed over y cubed. Okay? Just multiplying fractions. Multiply across the top, multiply across the bottom, and that gives you the power to a quotient. Okay. If you have questions about these, please raise your hand and I can help you, and you can get started on the practice.